Great, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us here. And let me begin our today's presentation. So today I will discuss one of the interesting, important, and sometimes mislooked thing that is combining data from various sources, qualitative and quantitative, both. We got this idea because IGA is quite good at qualitative research, and I'm not too bad at quantitative research. And the question that we often get is, how do we combine the knowledge? How do we optimize using the data from both of these sources? Before we begin, let me tell you about a case study. Well, the case study, I mean, maybe you tried before in your career to ask your customer for accepting to tell your case study live to other people, and generally companies dislike it. So let me say this. This case study may be real, may be inspired by real things, maybe not real. Who knows? Anyway, we'll talk about parcel boxes today, and one of the features that is going on there, which is cash on delivery. This is a method where you can use PayPal, while, okay, in the original it was actually Blik, but we're speaking in English, so let me translate it into PayPal, where when you approach the parcel box, when you want to collect the package or the parcel, what you do is you use your PayPal or you use your Blik to pay for the package then and there. And the question that we got was, should we continue maintenance and investment in cash on delivery feature? And we began with quantitative studies, which, well, is obviously quite objective, isn't it? And the question that we got, we decided to answer with two research methods, which is behavioral data analysis. So we decided to analyze how people behave in contact with the interface of the product when they order a package and when they collect the package, the parcel from the box. And then we decided to do a deep dive into financial data analysis. By we, I mean myself here. And the financial data was focused on frauds and on costs of returns, among other things. But these two factors turned out to be the most important ones. And some of the insights that we got were, one, cash on delivery is used in 5% of all transactions. It was one of the least popular methods for payments. Also, users who selected cash on delivery were 3 times as likely to abandon their parcels. So they ordered a parcel and then they never paid for it. So we had to, the customer had to, pay money to actually deliver the parcel back to the original sender. And then the most important thing, every single parcel, after thorough examination, turned out to cost us money. So the cost of the parcel was more expensive than the revenue that we got per parcel. And from analytical perspective, there can be only one recommendation. Abandon the product right now, kill it with fire. Cash on delivery method should be immediately removed. We lose money with every package that has been sent using this method.
Okay, so I received the same question, and I approach it as every UX researcher would, with qualitative research. We ask people to perform some tasks on this parcel box. We watch them, we ask them questions, we learned what they think, what they feel, and what we learned was that, first of all, it wasn't that easy to find this feature. Some of the people couldn't find it at all, and they actually needed help from the moderator. Even if they did find it, it took some time. However, once they already found it, they said it was great. They associated this feature with feelings of confidence. I'm sorry, I can't. Can I just put it?
Less, I think.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's a relief. No, it's not working.
I switched it off.
Okay, what do I do?
All the way up the slider.
It is up.
try saying something?
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Yes, you can hear me. It's working. So the relief that I'm feeling right now, this is exactly what they felt while they were using the product, once they already found it. So it was about safety, about relief, strong emotions. Unfortunately, once they began using it, they had a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, up to, on average, about 3 mistakes every time they tried to use it. So that's a lot. So what was the insight and the recommendation? We need to make it better. The usability of this process is not good. The complexity is too high. We need to make it better and redesign.
Now, let's stop right here and let's think what just happened. Imagine the following situation. The decision maker has only access to IGA's research. And IGA's research says we should make the process simplified. We should make the process more visible. And the data is quite convincing, actually, if you look only at that part of the information. So what happens is we invest money in the feature that costs us money. Definitely not the optimal decision. However, if the decision maker also had access to only the analytical data, the quantitative data, what would happen is that they would kill with fire the feature that actually had quite some potential, because safety is an emotion that you really want to evoke in your users, because quite a lot of people find it a strong motivation to use a feature or a product, especially as such sensitive as, something dealing with your physical belongings. So therefore, this decision would not be optimal either. Now, let's assume that we have both of these sources available. What can happen with the decision maker? One, politics. So if we have a decision maker who would like to get rid of another decision maker, and the other decision maker actually happens to be the author of that cash on delivery method, they could cherry pick the data that shows how wrong they were and use it. And on the other hand, if they are interested in actually investing in that feature, what they would do is they could use only the qualitative information. And this is quite easy to do, actually, because in the company where you have these silos of qualitative, quantitative research, the silos rarely talk to each other. So this means that it's quite easy to make politics based on data, and that's the opposite of research. However, let's assume that they want to be objective. What happens then is everybody has biases, right? A decision maker is not supposed to be a researcher. They are supposed to navigate product in roughly straight line, strategically ahead throughout something that currently is a huge financial crisis. I mean, they do have their biases, they do have their the things that they want to see in the product. So what happens is it's difficult to create an objective decision out of the sets of data that tell two very different things. I mean, what would you do in this situation? You get two different reports from that say widely different things, right? What would you do with this information? And well, how do we reconcile it?
And this is when atomic research comes for help. This is an approach that puts insights and recommendation in the center, and it also makes you want to use different sources of data. So, in atomic research, you have different studies, different sources of data. It can be qualitative, quantitative, it can be primary, secondary, generative, evaluative, you name it. You do the study, and you look for observations. Observations are facts, things that happened, things that cannot be disputed. They basically happened. It could be a quote, it could be a statistic, it could be something that people did. Once you have all these observations, you look for patterns, and you look how you can combine them together and get an understanding of what it is that people are trying to do. And those are called insights. This is an interpretative process, so it's a bit subjective. This is why it's important to gather this data from different sources. And at the end, of course, you have recommendation. Those insights, they lead you to some recommendation to your product. So as you can see here, you have insights and recommendation in the center of atomic research. It's not about creating a report, it's not about gathering as much data as you can, it's about making decisions. So let's put it into practice. So from our qualitative research, we learned that cash on delivery process is long and complex. From quantitative, we learned that basically it generates losses, right? We lose money. What if we put it together? What if we combine those observations? We could actually learn that it's not the feature itself that generates losses, it's how badly it was implemented. So the usability issues is the reason why we are having losses.
Yep. Now, one more thing that we can do with in this framework is to actually start to having this kind of weighed discussions. So when we create insights, what happens is that different observations have different value for our insights. So for example, if we have a quote, it may not be a strong evidence because it often comes from a single person or a small group of people. While if we have an information that comes from a wide range of people or is critical for business, it can be very important, and that's where weights come in. So we can start weighing observations. In this example, we could state that the insight that losses are generated due to difficult cash on delivery process is very strongly supported by this observation that users were 3 times more likely to abandon parcels, and that revenue was lower than cost, right? So this tells us about losses, but also an important observation is that a lot of mistakes were done in usability tests, which is quite unusual. So this is also a strong argument for this insight. And we haven't found any real arguments against it. However, it could be more dialectic. It could be more of a discussion process where we have enough observations. We can start creating insights and then discuss it, but using the observations as arguments. So, so let's say that I created this insight, right? Cash on delivery is an unimportant feature because only 5% of our users use it. However, Iga comes to me and tells me, I wouldn't necessarily say so. Look at that. When they finally understand what it does, they love it. So, it's like -1 to your example, Michał, sorry. And then, again, in the past 6 months, half of our subjects decided to use the cash on delivery payment method somewhere else. So again, this is something that goes against my argument. And what we get is something that is at least controversial, because we can see that we have like 2 points for my insight, but 3 points against. That's a very nice feature of atomic research. And also, please note, everybody can do it. You don't have to be a researcher, you don't have to be an analyst to actually do research. And by do research, I mean create new knowledge from observations. And how do we select ways? Well, basically on the importance of the data sources, on the significance of the data, potential impact, and our own subjective intuition. We cannot get away from it, right? It's something that we can use. It should never be the deciding factor, but when we have nothing else, intuition is good enough. It's yours.
No, it isn't.
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that.
He just spoke my part.
I did?
Yeah, the previous slide was mine.
Oh, no. Sorry about that, Iga. So, how do you get from insights to recommendations? First of all, the losses. You can see here that the recommendation is a necessary part of the process. So what we have here is that cash on delivery should be simplified and should be more visible. This is something that Iga decided to recommend to the stakeholders. However, we have arguments against, because some insights go quite against this recommendation. And on the other hand, if only my recommendation was used, we would get to a similar result, right? So only some of these, sorry for swapped colors. So only some of these insights actually support the recommendation. Instead, what we can do is, based on these insights, we can create a recommendation that takes into account everything. So here, one such recommendation could be cash on delivery should be redesigned, as Iga wanted, but also with extra focus on fraud prevention. I hope I'm not telling your slide now.
No, you're not.
Great.
Give me the microphone, please.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so where you can look for this data, of course you can do primary research, but you don't have to. I mean, you can look for other resources as well, and this is what's great about atomic research, because you already have a lot of data. You have, I don't know, you have some market research, you have some reports that are probably lying somewhere with your repositories that no one is really using. You could also look for user satisfaction or their opinions, comments on App Store, let's say. So there are a lot of ways you can gather these insights and gather these observations and use them in atomic research. And there are a lot of companies that are trying to use it because it's a rather new trend. It's about a couple of years. But companies like Deloitte, Adobe, WeWork, Dovetail, they're combining qualitative and quantitative by using atomic research. And this example that you're seeing here is actually from the European Commission. You can look for it online. There's a nice case study about how they used it and what kind of insights that they got from it. However, if you're looking for atomic research on the internet, be advised, it's better to use the term
atomic UX research.
Indeed, because if you try to look for atomic research, you will find
I think atomic bombs and nuclear fusion.
Which might be not a good idea, especially at the time.
Not for us
Yes.
at the moment.
And it is, of course, not our idea. There are two most popular, most known people trying to popularize this idea. One of them is Tomer Sharon. He's an ex-Googler. You will find a lot of articles written by him, but we personally like the approach created or developed by Daniel Pitcock. He's a great researcher and designer as well, and his idea of atomic research is more holistic and put in more focus on not just the data repository, but also how do you make these insights? How do you have these assumptions developed into recommendations? And he's also a creator of a tool.
Yep, the tool is Gleanly. So here we can go to another question, is how do you do this? Oh, by the way, one thing about Daniel, we actually were able to talk to him, and he wants to talk with us more. Yay, because he thinks we're good people to talk with. What happens is that if you want to really learn more about atomic research, he's very open to actually contacting him because he's in such a way of his career. So you can try and contact him online. He was actually delighted to talk with us about it. How do we do this? He created this tool called Gleanly. This is his own original tool that is crafted to copy or to walk you through this exact process of atomic research. So if you want to do atomic UX research, the way it is supposed to be done, you can use this tool. However, it's obviously an investment. You may not want to try it straight away. You may want to experiment with it and to check whether it's for you. And you can use cheaper or free methods to actually do it. So if you have Airtable in your company, or if you use it, you can use this QR code, and it will give you access to a simple repository with experiments, with recommendations, insights. So that's just an example of a database for you to use in your own atomic research. However, I prefer a more hands-on approach to atomic research, where the process is quite manual, right? You put stuff on paper, you move it around, you try to gather it into insights and try to think, okay, maybe these observations combine, maybe these insights can create a recommendation. And you can do it online using, for example, Lucidchart. It's a tool that was definitely not designed to do atomic research. It's designed to do flowcharts, but it works wonderfully. So I strongly recommend it. And then you can basically go to a meeting and try for yourself. If you have enough data in your company and you have a problem that requires combining the two sources, which is qualitative and quantitative, you can basically draw insights on pieces of paper or even print it before the meeting and do a small internal workshop in a team of 3 or 4 people, like UX researcher, analyst, and PM, and see where it takes you. If you like it, then just go with it.
And what atomic research gives you is it naturally gives you triangulation, even if you don't know what triangulation is. So you're combining different resources, qualitative, quantitative, and you're using it to draw conclusions. And it's also important that in the heart of atomic research, you have not data, but insights. So What is it that we can learn from the data? How we can understand it, how we can apply it to our product. And this is what brings us to knowledge democratization. This is the good kind of democratization. I'm not a fan of democratizing research because not everyone can do it well, and not everyone should. However, everyone should be able to use the insights, the knowledge that comes from research, because this is what helps us to make better product decisions. And once you have a repository of all those insights, everyone can use them and everyone can make some recommendations. And at the very end of our talk, we wanted to come to the beginning. Our title of our presentation was, at the very beginning, data-driven products. But we actually don't like this term, me especially, because there's a hidden assumption in this title that once you have the data, you know what to do. Everything is simple, right? You know what kind of decisions to make. That's bullshit, basically. It's not true. There's always a lot of interpretation. You also have to be very creative with the solutions. So data doesn't really tell you what to do, it just gives you knowledge. And this is why we like the term evidence-based products, because data, these data points, things that you learn from either an interview or product analytics, this is something that gives you evidence that your decision is right or wrong, that you know what you're doing. So the last thought we wanted to leave you with is think evidence, not data. Thank you.
I have a question to Iga and Michał. So I wanted to ask about the weights, because you were showing the scores that you gave to different observations. And I was wondering, was it something just to visualize the concept for the presentation, or do you recommend that using that actually to make decisions?
Yeah, it's the latter. I actually noticed because this is the third time I get this question tonight, and I noticed. Yeah, I'm an expert in answering this question. I noticed that I missed a critical piece of information, which is we do recommend using it, and we do recommend the scale to be -3 to +3. So that way, when you make this process, it's easy to find out like huge amount of quotations. Right, and you can just pack the discussion with all these quotes and say, look, 20 quotes that say that this is cool, right, and only 5 that say that this is not cool, this is bad insight. I win, right? But then the quotes will never be as important as hard financial data. So you should if you have something that I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, Iga and I still hasn't settled out on which data is better, qualitative or quantitative. So we do recommend using it, and I think that the best way is to use scales that are somewhat short. So you don't have this NPS-like problem. You have scale of 0 to 10. Where are we? Like what -10 means? How does it compare to -9? So -3 to +3 gives you some like wiggle room to change the answers, but at the same time, it lets you understand intuitively what it means that something is -1, -2, -3. Does that answer your question, Iga? Oh.
I want to add something. Yes, it's just a tool, right? It's a tool that helps you out in thinking. And what you should be doing is the thinking part rather than, putting focus on the numbers. So that's just a tool that helps you spend some time and, think about every single piece of information. Is it strong? Is it weak? And this is just a tool that helps you out. You agree?
Great answer.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Okay, so the question was, how do you decide what mark to give? Again, the answer is you think about it. You take into consideration as many things as possible. The source, the reliability of the source. This is actually the slide that I was about to speak to talk about. You stole it from me. Yes, so you have to take into consideration the reliability of the source, how many people it affects, how strongly it affects the business as well. Is it in line with the strategy of your company? So there are a lot of things that you have to consider. And this is why it's a good idea not to do it alone. So you gather more people, for example, an analyst or a product manager, designer. Take more people because they will focus on different things and they will have different perspectives. And then you can decide on whether, it's strong or weak.
No, I mean, when you speak about it, I really like this framework.
Any more questions?
Roman? Okay, thank you guys for the presentation, first of all. It was great. And my question is about the first presenters, about this case study. It kind of left me hanging about this cash-on delivery method. You did produce the recommendation, and I'm really interested how it worked out.
Okay, yeah, I can say it to the microphone. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's classified. Yeah.
We already got a question once. How do you make this? How can you cheat and make the fraud? Yeah. We're not telling that either.
So I will dive a bit deeper into that question, and I wanted to ask, because Michał, you mentioned that the perfect world is pretty good practice to separate the research and decision-making process, and I can imagine like there is like plethora of advantages in that approach. However, in real life, I guess that you can share your experience about any pitfalls or challenges the researcher and product manager could face in that approach, and there will be always, even like producing or introducing some recommendations, there will be always a space for a cognitive bias, for example, because you have some preferences even despite the fact you are trying to do your best during the research.
So this question, I think it has actually two parts. So the first one is the reality check. I said that decision maker should not be a researcher, and I'll stick to it. I'll defend it with all I've got, because I think that this is mentally on a cognitive level, these are two very different tasks. The product manager, whatever the role may be in the company. I mean, a researcher can be a product manager when they create a survey, right? Whatever you create, whenever you do it, you have one goal in mind, to deliver it. And you do everything just to deliver, just to goddamn deliver. And then when you're an analyst, you do the opposite of delivery. You look around and see, oh, you won't do it here, you'll fail here. Oh, these people say that you should do other stuff. So if you do it within your own head, what you do is you just get into the way of one another. And me as an analyst, I'm saying PM is the more important one. Delivery is more important than for delivery to be perfect. So therefore it should be two roles, but it doesn't have to be the same person. Now, in reality, obviously, what happens is that as a PM, you do need to do some quick research from time to time, and you just do it because the research question is very simple. So that's the most typical example. You just want to know how many people use it, and you are sure that this is the thing you want to know. You don't need an analyst to this, and it happens quite a lot. You just need to make sure that every time you do it, just like with pie charts, right? You need to make sure that this is the thing you want to do. I want to answer this question myself. You should never make it a rule, and that is okay. And then when it comes to this dyadic relationship where you get the analyst and the PM, the first thing that is important is it doesn't have to be an analyst. It can be a person who is just objective, who's not biased because they are not creating the product. So that's the first part. And then the second part, pitfalls of this cooperation, is obviously time. When you need two people to cooperate, what it takes more resources. So it's not always optimal to invest in an analyst in the project. Every time you build a project, you just need to decide how much knowledge you need. If this is Sherlock and you're going to invest a year of your time, by all means, do research, do analytics. But if this is a small feature or a small debug or a small, refurbishing of something, just go to your designer, tell them, screw that, we believe our intuition, and let's just do it the best we can. So you always have to balance cost versus return. And I think that's the biggest pitfall. You can get into this infinite loop of analysis paralysis, right? You get deeper and deeper and deeper and never get the real answer to your question. Okay, does that help? Does that answer? Ish.
I think I would also add, because this is a part of atomic research as well, is that there are already a lot of data out there, and you don't have to focus only on just this one experiment or test that you're doing right now. You can look for the data somewhere else as well, and that will make it more objective, because it's not just you that did this research, but a lot of people before you who maybe even had some other questions in mind, but that helps you to draw a right conclusion. Did that help? Good enough.